Mamdani Mubarak. So, in June 2025, I used colonizer-free astrology to reassure you all this man would be winning the election. But because we exist in fascism 2.0, a lot of you were not feeling so hopeful. And plus, we had that weird stint where those fascist tech bots kept plaguing my comment section. But unfortunately for them, destiny is destiny. So the reason I was so confident he would win is not just because of his astrological placements, but we are astrologically in the downfall of colonialism, and the coming decades really do a number on a lot of the oppression we are so used to, right? And also, don't forget, I told you, we are very much going to watch the American empire explode within our lifetime. So saying all of that, I wanted to create a series on Mamdani where we kind of break down really pivotal events that will be unfolding during his first term. So you know the routine. Grab a cup of jar, get comfortable. Let's get into a candid cosmic chit chat. So in part 2 of the series, I really want to concentrate on what I can only describe as the financial crimes that will come to light during Zoran's first term. Now, there's a particularly potent time from around the spring of 2026 until early 2028, where essentially he basically uncovers the amount of, again, it's financial crimes, but it's also like simultaneously financial abuse. But the thing is, this is not, you're just talking about maybe people in leadership or authority positions taking a little bit extra than they should, you know, being a little bit liberal with charging stuff as expenses. No, I think these are honestly such scandalous financial crimes that he finds or really begins to prosecute that it potentially even changes how financial regulation is working in America. I think you could actually see changes in economic policies, like the laws all around it. So it's not by any means going to be something small. And now I'm starting to wonder if all the people that were funding the campaign against Mamdani are potentially aware of perhaps how their financial crimes under his terms could not stay so hidden. But let's get into the nitty-gritty hibiscuses. So this journey very much is beginning in 2026. So behind me, I have his horoscope. Let me go through my initial thoughts, right? So Ketu is going to be going through the 9 types of Leo. Now, Ketu actually deals with imprisonment, bankruptcy, and crimes, right? Now, Ketu is transiting in his second house. So there are a lot of factors happening here. Second house also deals with banking and finances. But the thing that I found so interesting is he naturally has Jupiter, which symbolizes governments and banks and all of that, in a sign called Marga, which is Leo type 1 to 4. And that basically symbolizes a time where very much in 2026, he is deeply analyzing, investigating, and assessing how the banks or these large financial institutions are, you know, moving and grooving in his part of the town. And then on top of that, you have Venus in Pulfaguni, which, long story short, talks about someone being very dodgy with money, right? Money laundering, financial crimes, all of that. Then go a little bit deeper, right? On the opposite side, he has Rahu going through the 8th house. So Rahu is currently going through the different types of Aquarius, which basically talk about digital crimes, right? And the 8th house is very much like shared assets, shared resources, insurance companies. So for me, 2026 is such a loaded time where by default, he is literally going to be flooded with so much information, so many secrets, so much evidence, if you will, of financial misconducts from the banks, financial misconducts, even stuff like insurance companies or like those type of financial institutions which take people's money but they've been misusing it. Or again, maybe those companies haven't been doing really well but they've been playing around with people's monies to kind of hide their losses. Let me be clear about what I think is going to happen. So number one, I definitely feel like he's going to find like the banks or big financial institutions or the insurance companies, like anything of that nature. He's going to discover how not only have they broken financial regulation so deeply, but associated to that, maybe how they've been paying off government officials or certain departments to kind of hide their crimes, right? Number two, I also think there's going to be a huge scandal around money laundering, right? But the thing is, it's going to be like money laundering where like they're not declaring how much they make, or they are kind of like having a network of companies so they can deflect from paying certain taxes, and they're also sending those monies abroad, which again we will touch on a little bit later on this video. And then I also think thirdly, maybe how everything's very manipulated. So you might think, oh, there's like a lot of choices, but then it's going to come back that it only belongs to one company, right? But that's my thing. In 2026, the journey of financial crimes coming to light under his reign begins with how manipulated the financial institutions are, how they've been doing illegal stuff and been paying people off. And then let's look at 2027. If you like, 2026 is pretty much his year of receipts. That's where he's going to gather all the evidence, start all the investigation, but essentially everything will fall into his hand. How manipulated the financial scene is in New York, how nothing is how it appears, and you know, again, how bad the embezzlement, the money laundering, almost like financial mafia is 101. Now let's look at 2027, because in 2027, I believe that's when the process of what's been stolen begins to be recovered, but there will be such deep outrage about who got this money. So let me explain, right? In 2027, his first and seventh house is going to be activated. Now, Jupiter and Ketu are going to be conjunct for a few months in 2027, right? And they're going to be going through the 9 different types of Cancer. Check this out. So Jupiter represents governments, banks, right? The different types of Cancer symbolize family units. Ketu is imprisonment and bankruptcy. Cool? And during this time, previously, Rahu would have been going through the 8th house, which is about like real estate, shared assets, resources, pensions, all of that. I think it's going to be very likely Mamdani, or under Mamdani's term, he's going to create like a huge financial trail where you can see not only have they like stolen money, but like certain government officials or whatever have actually given it to other family members, and essentially like it's all crooked, right? But that's the thing, like I think you're going to find it in people's real estate portfolios. I think you're going to find like, oh, they took out this much money and they gave it to X company, but X company belongs to like the daughter, the sons. And I also think he's going to take major legal action to then prosecute them, to either ascertain that money back and give it to the New Yorkers, or like it's not going to be like, oh, they just edit and it's going to go unopposed, right? The other thing is Rahu's going to be going through the 9 types of Capricorn, which means like the people he's going to come up against are really big names, and they might even be like big names that you kind of trust or would not assume are committing financial crimes, but like he's going to town. So just to summarize, this is what I think is going to happen. So number 1, he is definitely going to prosecute every Tom and Dick and Harry that is associated to stealing money. Then I think associated to that, he's going to seize their assets or freeze them, so the money trail is cut off, but a good chunk will be restored to people. Now, number 2, one of the challenges I think he's going to run into is some of these people are going to try to like run away to foreign countries to avoid prosecution. I also think there's going to be a foreign element to this, where either they've taken that money and they put it in foreign countries or foreign assets, so it makes it a little bit harder to recover. But I do think all in all, he will be successful. And then the final point I wanted to make is that he's going to find out a lot of the time they would take this money to give to foreign entities to do some kind of work or tampering for them. And I want to emphasize the stuff that Zoran Mamdani uncovers directly impacts Donald Trump, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and a range of other figures, because during this first 2.5 years, he also starts to find how money was flooded in to tamper with elections. But it's going to be like something really saucy. I don't know if that's like undeclared funds given to these people, or like what those funds were put towards in terms of technology, or how they funded certain campaigns. Like, what did you do with this money? But yeah, the first 2.5 years of his term is uniquely marked by financial crimes, uncovering them and prosecuting them. And to be clear, I feel like there's going to be a mixture of either policyholders or taxpayers where their money has been funneled to do shit that it wasn't meant to do. So they thought it was sitting in a pension, but it's being guzzled